condemned the attacks strongly enough. But she's also been hailed as a heroine of freedom and democracy. Tonight, I want to hear what you think about the late Margaret Thatcher. But first, let's take a look at this report.
Asked me to form a new administration.
She was the leader who split a nation and told us there was no such thing as society. For some, the 11 years of Margaret Thatcher's government was a period of economic renewal, national pride and modernisation.
There's very few political leaders that get a chance and have the character and the ability to change not just the political landscape of their country, but the political landscape of the world. And she was such a figure. She was a towering global figure who made a vast impact. And you know, her reputation is rightly immensely high.
For others, it was a period of class warfare and spiralling inequality, which left communities in Britain broken and impoverished.
We were told that everything I had been taught to regard as a vice, and I still regard them as vices, under Thatcherism was in fact a virtue. Greed, selfishness, no care for the weaker, sharp elbows, sharp knees, they were the way forward. We've heard much over and will continue to hear over the next week of the barriers that were broken down by Thatcherism, the establishment that was destroyed.
We can't take it.
By the end of Thatcher's period in office, poverty in the UK had risen, with over a fifth of the population living below the 60% median income, almost double where it had been when she entered. Her foreign policy was equally divisive. While she brought Britain closer to America, she also counted among her friends Chile's Augusto Pinochet, whom, in her last speech in the House of Lords, she defended against extradition for human rights abuses, saying that the UK owes him a great debt. For those in black, Asian and other minority communities, her legacy is hardly spotless either. She was a self-confessed fan of the controversial politician Enoch Powell, and she spoke in 1978 of hoping for an end to immigration. She sympathised with British people who felt they were being rather
The Queen has asked me to form a new administration.
She was the leader who split a nation and told us there was no such thing as society. For some, the 11 years of Margaret Thatcher's government was a period of economic renewal, national pride and modernisation.
There's very few political leaders that get a chance and have the character and the ability to change not just the political landscape of their country, but the political landscape of the world. And she was such a figure. She was a towering global figure who made a vast impact. And you know, her reputation is rightly immensely high.
For others, it was a period of class warfare and spiralling inequality, which left communities in Britain broken and impoverished.
We were told that everything I had been taught to regard as a vice, and I still regard them as vices, under Thatcherism was in fact a virtue. Greed, selfishness, no care for the weaker, sharp elbows, sharp knees, they were the way forward. We've heard much over and will continue to hear over the next week of the barriers that were broken down by Thatcherism, the establishment that was destroyed.
We can't take it.
By the end of Thatcher's period in office, poverty in the UK had risen, with over a fifth of the population living below the 60% median income, almost double where it had been when she entered. Her foreign policy was equally divisive. While she brought Britain closer to America, she also counted among her friends Chile's Augusto Pinochet, whom, in her last speech in the House of Lords, she defended against extradition for human rights abuses, saying that the UK owes him a great debt. For those in black, Asian and other minority communities, her legacy is hardly spotless either. She was a self-confessed fan of the controversial politician Enoch Powell, and she spoke in 1978 of hoping for an end to immigration. She sympathised with British people who felt they were being rather swamped by foreign cultures. Shortly after her death, the Australian Foreign Minister Bob Carr recalled her making what he called unabashedly racist comments.
Where she warned Australia, talking to me, with Helena standing not far away, against Asian immigration, saying that if we allowed too much of it, we'd see the natives of the land, the European settlers, overtaken by migrants. I couldn't believe it.
Thatcher's legacy will be debated for a long time to come, with a ceremonial funeral in London next Wednesday being staffed by 700 armed guards. It's fair to say that no one will regard the Iron Lady's passing as a minor event in history.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Alex McDonald, Islam Channel.
Well, now it's your chance to take part in the debate. That's divided the country, if not the world. And I want to hear what you think of Margaret Thatcher's politics and how it affected you. Were you around the time when she got into power, remembering that this was a landmark? Margaret Thatcher was and is the only female prime minister of the country. And how did her policies affect you? One of the landmark policies she did bring in is the Housing Act, changing the Housing Act to bring in right to buy, which helped a lot of people own their council properties. But as also a lot of things on the other side, as we saw in the report, greed, selfishness, destruction of society, these are some of the things that have come in. Well, to discuss this and more, I'm joined in the studio by Wafik, who is Middle East Conservative Forum. And I'm also going to be joined by Jeremy Corbyn in the second half. So good evening, Assalamu alaikum, Wafik Mustafa. Thank you for joining me this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Now, as I described you, Middle East Conservative Forum. So obviously you are part of the Conservative Party, if you like, in that sense. Are you sad at the loss of Margaret Thatcher?
Certainly sad. She a towering figure, and I'm really watching how Tony Blair really summed up her achievements. There's no doubt she was a very controversial figure.
It's also quite interesting that Tony Blair was summing up her achievements, and a lot of people, I'm sure, will have a few things to say about Tony Blair. But in terms of her achievements, of course, we should be respectful in our discussion and debate. But a lot of people, they don't have anything positive to say about it. And this is the first time I've witnessed where actually an ex-prime minister has died and people are having parties in the streets.
Well, I have as well. Some people are sad. We have to keep in perspective that she was near 90s. So she was very ill, very sick lady, and her death was not unexpected. Nonetheless, as you say, she has been in politics for such long, and she changed the landscape of the British politics and international politics. British politics, as we know, she changed the attitudes in industry. She brought the Japanese into this country. She have weakened the unions. She's done a lot of work inside this country for many years, for 11 years.
You touched upon one of the perhaps most well-known moments of Margaret Thatcher is her kind of confrontation with the miners and how she handled the unions overall. Like you say, she actually did reduce the unions to be less effective and less powerful. But there's a lot of bitterness about that. A lot of people feel that what's happened to the country is become a country and individuals of greed and money, and society itself isn't perhaps benefited from all of these policies.
Well, if you look at the landscape of Britain pre-Thatcher, Britain was considered and looked at as the sick man of Europe. And to pull the country together was not an easy task. I think if you look, Britain became wealthier, became stronger, became a very influential country in the world. If we look at the Falklands, later on the Gulf, the occupation of Kuwait, she played a huge role. I was just first-year GP, a doctor, when the miners' strike was taking place. And I could see, I could not see the things, of course, at that time what I see it right now. But certainly there is a lot of changes in this country due to
So you would
Lady
contend
Thatcher.
that they were positive changes?
I'm sure there's a positive changes and there is negative changes like the poll tax. I mean, we have,
Well, hold your horses. Let's see if our caller, Mohammed, who's calling from Kent, is going to talk about the poll tax. Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed.
Yes, hello. Wa alaikum salam to yourselves, your speaker, and all your viewers. Nice to see you. My question is, my comment
Yeah.
is, I grew up sort of during the Thatcher period and the poll tax, what's just been referred to, and the riots. Whether, I mean, she was a divisive prime minister, whichever side you're on. I personally benefited from the sale of council homes. So, obviously if someone benefits, there's no complaints there.
That's right,
Sort of thing. We have to balance it up. And then I suppose if you're from North and in the mining communities, I mean, let's be honest, she devastated communities there, and there's no two ways about that. So it depends on what you have to have a balanced view. One of the things that I'll take away is that whatever side of politics you're on, one thing that, and I disagreed with a lot of what she did, by the way.
Sure.
But one thing that I do respect is when you say something, you do something. And she was a conviction politician. The Falklands War, going against the advice of America. There's lots of things, examples. So there's not many people, I think, today that, and in a way it is a very Islamic thing, saying...
She was very principled in that sense.
Whether you agree... You're never going to please 100% of the people all the time. That's the nature of politics. So there you go. I mean, you're going to get half the country that agrees, half disagrees, whatever it might be. But one thing I think everyone can say is she believed in something, she would push that through. That takes courage, takes a lot of things. I've never voted Conservative. Okay, I know your guest speaker there, but that's irrelevant.
Sure.
There is that respect.
No. I think a lot of people would agree with you there, Mohammed, on that point.
I respect anyone that can carry that through. But I grew. I'm coming up 45, so I'm actually from that era, really, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean that's my comment, and I'm
Jazakallah
various comments really.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Mohammed, for your call. No one can take that away from her. She was very principled, and she is a conviction, not convicted. Some people would say she should be a convicted politician, but she is actually a conviction politician. I mean, she did get the job done, and what she believed in, she went out and got it.
And that's what made her unique. To probably the first post-war prime minister after Churchill to can claim that position. She was a person who did not play politics in a sort of political correctness era. As you say, she had a conviction about a certain aspect of politics. She'll go ahead and do it. A lot of people said about, myself as Egyptian, for example, a lot of people thought the Iraq occupation of Saddam Hussein, occupation of Kuwait, they will back off and they will have a deal with Saddam Hussein. But she did not do that. If anything, she more or less pressed President Bush Sr. to do something about it. And without her, I could imagine the war against Saddam Hussein, which sadly caused a lot of problems too.
No, and I think whether what she's got her conviction set on or her aim set on, whether we agree with that or not, I mean, the point is that she's someone that followed through, and it's interesting the phrase you use. I mean, she didn't practice political correctness, and in our news report. We saw the Australian politician there mentioning how she was warning about immigration and needs to keep a lid on it. I mean, she was actually looking to stop all immigration to the UK as well. Now, a lot of people find that problematic and distasteful because whenever you discuss immigration, there is some people believe some form of racism does come into it. Do you think she? I mean, in the report, the politician almost said, that she had that racist connotation in her comments. Do you believe that she was along those lines? Was she, racist, classist?
I wouldn't think so, because there's no evidence that immigration was diminished during her period in office or immediately after she left office. If anything, immediately after she left office, more or less the Middle East wave of immigrants, of people came, asylum seekers, economic migrants. It's increased tremendously at this period. I remember, because I was the first wave Egyptian Arabs to come to this country. Yeah. And we hardly, when I used to walk in central London, I know someone else. Yeah, even when I was a member of Conservative Party initially, it was only 3 or 4 people I could meet for my skin colour, and Asians also.
Yeah, and I think, the other point that Mohammed raised, which is true. I mean, one of the most controversial policies was this poll tax, which in the end she did abandon. But it caused riots, huge riots. I recall them in Trafalgar Square. And the sense you get is that, whilst it's admirable for a politician to be, believe in their policies, have conviction for their policies, but there's also this other side where, maybe listen to sound advice. She comes across as if she doesn't take any advice from anyone.
Certainly, the poll tax was a bad judgment. It was. I agree with Mohammed what he said. It wasn't going to win, and did not win. And I think it's probably damaged her a lot.
Yeah. Well, we do want to hear your views, so do call us. The number is on the bottom of your screen, inshallah. Now, just moving the discussion on about the funeral. As soon as Margaret Thatcher passed away, I don't know if you follow Twitter or not. There's this trending thing that happens. What people are talking about a lot. No state funeral was trending very, very high. It seemed like there was a lot of people that were concerned that she was going to get a state funeral. I mean, she's not getting a state funeral, though it's a ceremonial funeral that's taking place. But interestingly, the Queen is also going to turn up. So, do you think that's befitting? Is this right? That a politician should be getting this kind of funeral?
I think she's a very special politician, and I'm sure. Probably there's only 2 politicians I think of that caliber since Churchill will be, so far, Miss Thatcher and Blair. So I think she's done. Obviously, it looks to me from the arrangements almost like state
That's
funeral.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to hold that thought and go to the phone line. Yasmin is calling from Leicester. Assalamu alaikum, Yasmin. Yasmin? Hello, Yasmin.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you right now. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Well, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I had to call in.
Yeah.
Because it's rather misleading to say just because the lady was had convictions in her belief is not so much. It is not necessarily a positive thing. It depends on what your beliefs are. Just because you have convictions about your beliefs, I mean, she believed that Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. So that's hardly, that shows rather a lot what she thinks. And also, don't forget, she was very convicted in starting wars and killing people. This is not a positive thing.
Yeah, yeah.
She also was convicted in making sure that the working class, the ordinary people in this country, lost their jobs. She closed down all the different industries that kept people going for the sake of keeping the rich richer. And we are suffering now the things that the seeds that she planted.
Very good points. Okay, thank you, Yasmin, for those points. Let's go to Mohammed, who's calling from Kent, I believe. Oh, Ibrahim, sorry. Ibrahim.
Walking, sorry.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, you're on air. Your views, please.
Yeah. I'd just like to say, I came down from Lancashire the very day that Margaret Thatcher was elected in 1979. I was 17 years of age, just left school, was unemployed for about a year in the Northwest, absolutely no hope of a job. That was during the Labour era, and hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of jobs had been lost in those preceding 3 or 4 years. There was absolutely no hope of any job situations up north. And I did what Norman Tebbit later told people to do, which was to get a new bike, but I did it before he actually told people to do it. So I came down south and got onto the jobs ladder, worked very, very hard, got a good career out of it, went back up north, worked for many years, and now I'm back down south, settled in Surrey. So I did quite well out of doing what I had to do. The unemployment that happened, the bad times that came along in the 70s, weren't entirely down to Thatcher. They were happening anyway. If you went to Lancashire at that time or to Yorkshire, you'd have seen hundreds, if not hundreds of mills closing with thousands of jobs, people going out of jobs. And there was a huge amount a number of people on benefits. And there was absolutely no hope. Fortunately for the UK, the North Sea Oil came along at the same time as well. So it wasn't just Thatcher. But I do give credit to North Sea Oil as well. She used the money properly to pay off the debts and started to perform some recovery with her cabinet and the industrialists. Yes, it was a bit of a greedy time.
Sorry, Ibrahim, to interrupt. In terms of, so are you saying, in terms of, say, Margaret Thatcher's funeral, are you happy that taxpayers' money is going to be spent in organising this ceremonial funeral that's going to take place on the 17th? Basically, London's going to come to a gridlock on that day. There's going to be huge police resources that's going to be used. I saw a report earlier that said that it's going to be the amount of police resources that's going to be used is going to be similar to the royal wedding. So do you think that's appropriate? That's right?
I personally, from my perspective, I think it's absolutely right. I think she was a great woman. From my perspective, what I saw in the 70s and 80s, I reckon personally that had it been any other, or had it been a Labour leader in charge of the country, I don't think we would have come out of the recessions that followed.
Okay.
In the same way as we did with her. She did stand her ground. She was a lady of conviction.
Okay, thank you, Ibrahim, for your views. And just to welcome Jeremy, thank you for joining us. I'm going to come to you, Jeremy. I'm just going to take one more caller and then come to you. I'm going to go to Jamal, who's calling from London. Assalamu alaikum, Jamal.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. You're on air. Your views, please. Jamal, you need to put your television volume down and then talk to us.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Good evening to everyone there.
Yep. Your views?
Yes, actually we are talking about Margaret Thatcher and some people who were talking before, they said, well, if she believed in something, she did it as it is something good, that if you believe in something, just to do it. Of course, that's not the case. She, as a prime minister, she has introduced many policies which destroyed many communities and social communities in the UK during her period. And also she has caused and supported wars. Your speaker with you, he was saying about a war against Saddam Hussein when he invaded Kuwait as something good. Well, I don't believe that Thatcher did it because she loved the Kuwaitis or she loved to defend them. She actually was defending the imperialist and imperial power of Britain because Britain and the British who divided the Arab countries to 22 countries and they made all these borders. So she didn't do that out of love to the Kuwaiti people. It's out of to keep the...
following her foreign policy initially.
Yes, to keep divided. It's about the interest of the British imperial power. It's not...
Okay, Jamal, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we're coming up to a break and Jeremy's just joined me and I do want him to say a few words before the break. But inshallah, feel free to call after the break again. So, Jeremy, just your reaction first, just generally, was Margaret Thatcher a force for good in this country, do you think?
Absolutely not. Absolutely terrible force in this country. She represented a nasty, narrow-minded range of opinions. Internationally, she supported General Pinochet in Chile. She called Nelson Mandela a terrorist, refused to put any sanctions on South Africa when even the USA were putting sanctions on South Africa. Started yet another arms race with the introduction of cruise missiles into Britain. And in Britain, systematically destroyed state-owned industries by privatization, created a money society rather than a manufacturing or productive society. And in her book, worship of money was everything. Worship of ephemeral success was everything. Long-term plans, there were none. And I think she created a sense of greed within our society, which unfortunately has not gone away. And I feel very angry for the way in which she treated many people, particularly the mining communities, during the 1980s, during the strike. The mining communities were proud working class communities with low levels of crime, high levels of employment and social inclusion, and were reduced to zones of mass unemployment, high crime and drug dependency. And she did nothing to invest in those communities, nothing to promote employment or jobs. And I felt very angry throughout the period that she was Prime Minister.
Of course, you were also in Parliament at the same time.
Yeah.
But
I listen to her twice a week at Prime Minister's Question Time.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you there and stop you there. I'm going to, Wafik, of course, you will get a chance to respond. Coming up to a break. Love to hear more of your views on this. I think Jeremy's highlighted a few areas that we can discuss. Tell us what you think. Maybe you agree with Jeremy, maybe you agree with Wafik. Tell me who you agree with. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum. We're going to be back in 6 minutes. Thanks, Jeremy, for making it in time. Yeah.
I didn't realise you've been around in Parliament for that long.
Since 1983.
Jeremy is a veteran.
I see it became a GP.
Yeah, I got misdirected to come here. That's why I'm late.
No worries.
In fact, hi.
Oh, did you go to the old studio?
No. I thought Bonhill Street was directly off City Road, and of course it's not.
That's Bunhill.
It's Bunhill.